am not letting you outside again. I need you to look at, I need you to hear this. I am not letting you outside right now. Do you hear me? No matter how cute you are, and no matter how sad your eyes are, I am not going to do it. Okay? Thank you. Fuckers. It's Megan
and Sue in the restricted section,
and today we are going to do our Read Harder 2018 TBR.
Yeah, tentative TBR.
Tentative.
Oh, do you want to ask, like, are we going to do our online book club the same way?
Yeah. Also, your hand was warm, and it felt nice. My shoulder was a little chilly.
So we're drinking this white stout. And it's called, I think the beer is called Casper. And the brewing company is, it says JP's, which stands for something. I looked it up on Untappd. James Page Brewing. Which, I don't remember where that's located. Minneapolis. Minnesota. And this is, maybe we should get a glass, because it's like, the point of it is that it's white.
Oh.
It's not dark.
It's not dark.
They're whitewashing beer now.
Well, they're whitewashing everything else. Why wouldn't they have?
Yeah, but I think it's supposed to be like a white chocolate stout. So let's pour it in a glass and see how white it is.
Oh God.
It's gold. It's like, it looks like a, you know,
like a pill
stock image photo of a beer.
Did you see that thing about the perfect pour?
No.
You're supposed to pour it with a bunch of head.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because it activates the CO2 in the beer.
It smells nice. I've actually had one last night. So.
Alright, let's do it.
I don't know why I'm holding it.
This is so weird.
It's odd. I don't think it's bad, but it is like, it does kind of taste like white chocolate.
It does, and it's kind of fucking with my mind because it doesn't look like it tastes.
Oh, because it doesn't look like a stout.
No.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, because it does taste like a stout. Can you two play quietly? And by you two, I mean Murphy.
It's all Murphy.
Sasha's like, I'm going to stick my nose in your vagina,
yep.
Anubis.
Sasha's very open. We're going to go with open.
Open? Intrusive?
With other people's genitals, but not with her own.
She's kind of a hypocrite.
Because anytime any other dog tries to sniff her butt, she's like, does like a complete 180, and she's like, what are you doing?
So, the beer's not bad.
Not bad.
Okay, so real quick before we get into our TBR, we wanted to announce, we decided to change up our book club a little bit.
Yes.
Hopefully you guys will be on board with this, but we thought it would be fun. Instead of choosing one book that we all read and discuss every month, we're going to choose a challenge from the Read Harder Challenge.
Yeah.
And then we can all choose whatever book we want that fulfills that challenge, and then discuss it and, you know, talk about why we chose it,
what we got out of it.
Yeah, do we feel like we grew as a person from reading it, from maybe going outside of our little box?
Yeah.
If we did, in fact, do that. So hopefully you guys will be into that, and we actually already chose which challenge we would do for this coming month, so it'll be our live stream for February, which will hopefully be back on BookTube, or on YouTube.
On YouTube's. Yeah,
but the challenge we chose randomly was to read a romance novel by or about a person of color. So that's the challenge we're going to be discussing in our live stream for the Restricted Book Club next month.
Right. So just choose a book that fits that description. And
and if you guys like absolutely hate that idea, then let us know.
Right.
And maybe we'll go back to choosing a book, one book a month. But we thought this would be cool because then people could still read what they wanted. And then we can just kind of all discuss the books that we read.
If you want us to tell you like what we choose to read for it ahead of time, then we can let you know that. So if you want to read the same thing that we do, you can.
Right.
Or that one of us does. If we don't read the same thing, then you can.
So we can post on Twitter and Facebook like what we're reading for that challenge. So, without further ado, let's talk about our tentative TBRs for all of these 24 challenges. We'll link the 2018 Read Harder Challenge below if you would like to either just look at it or join in. So, the first challenge is to read a book published posthumously.
And I didn't have anything tentatively chosen for this.
And I wrote down The Trial by Franz Kafka. I've had that on my shelf for a while, and I've heard everyone says it's a great book.
The next challenge is a book of true crime.
And I plan to read Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann, which is a book I've been wanting to read for a while.
Sounds so good.
So, yeah.
I plan to read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which was a pick for one of our former book clubs, and I didn't read it. So I own it, but I haven't read it.
Next is to read a classic of genre fiction, i.e. mystery, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, etc.
I'm going to read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, because I think that's a classic dystopian novel, so I'm gonna read that.
And I have written down Foundation by Isaac Asimov, which is a book I've had on my shelf for a while, but I also own other things that could fulfill this challenge as well, so again, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Next is a comic written and illustrated by the same person.
And I'm not really sure about this one. I wrote down tentatively maybe Hyperbole and a Half. I might borrow that from Megan because that's a comic that she writes and illustrates, right?
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
Who wrote it?
Ali
Brosh. Ali Brosh.
So I might borrow that from Megan. I don't know. Haven't really decided. If you guys have suggestions for this one, we'd appreciate it. Because I don't think either of us are super well versed in comics. So
no, I kind of was thinking Hyperbole and a Half too, but like Sue said, I'm not well versed in comics.
The next challenge is to read a book set in or about one of the 5 BRICS countries, which is not something I'd ever heard of.
Nor I, no.
But that is apparently Brazil, Russia, India, China, or South Africa.
And for that I chose Waiting by Ha Jin. I bought it at a library sale and I haven't read it yet.
Is that set in China?
Yep.
And I have written down Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov, which I believe is set in Russia. But again, I think I probably have a few things on my shelf that could fulfill this challenge, so we'll see.
Same. Next is a book about nature.
And I plan to finally read Nature's Nether Regions by Minnow Shilthuzin, which is a nonfiction book about animals getting it on.
Getting it on.
That's been on my TBR. It's been on my TBRs for readathons several times, and I've never gotten to it. So I want to finally read that fucking book.
Nice. I was thinking, I don't know if this will technically count or not, but I was thinking about reading, and of course I immediately...
Song of the Forest?
Yes. Song of the Forest by Colin McKay, which I borrowed from Sue and I meant to read last year and I didn't.
I feel like it could count, because I mean the forest plays a pretty big role, and the golem that they build is built out of twigs and stuff, so.
Okay, I feel like that could probably count for it. So I was thinking about I really want to read that book, and it would be cool. I'm going to read it anyway, but it would be cool if it would count for a challenge.
And the next challenge is to read a Western.
I honestly don't own any Westerns or know of any good Westerns.
I own 3 Westerns. And the one I plan to read is Woe to Live On by Daniel Woodrell. I read Winter's Bone by him a couple of years ago and really enjoyed it. So Woe to Live On is set in Missouri and Kansas, I think, and it's during the Civil War, I think.
Oh. Well then if that's the case, I might be able to read Cold Black Horse. Yeah, maybe. Oh, okay. Continue.
Because I think Woe to Live On would still count as a Western, even though I guess it's not set in the West.
But it would be considered.
But I also have True Grit by Charles Portis, and I have Comstock Lode by Louis L'Amour, which is a book I read as a child, but I could reread it.
The next is a comic written or illustrated by a person of color.
For this, again, if you guys have suggestions, that'd be great, because I have no idea. I'm not well versed in the world of comics. I do know my friend is putting out the 2nd volume of his comic this year, so at some point, I think. Charlie is the name of the comic, and the illustrator of that comic is a person of color, so I might count that for it. But
I don't have anything for this yet, so I'm very open to suggestion.
And next is to read a book of colonial or post-colonial literature.
I said Dubliners by James Joyce. Like, I'm a little bit unclear on what post-colonial literature is.
I think it's just a literature set in an area after it's been colonized.
Okay.
I wrote down The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. Is that right?
I think so.
That's a book I've had on my shelf for a long time and haven't read, but again, I think I probably have a few things that would count for this on my shelves, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go
count how many times I say we'll see.
We'll see
in this video.
A romance novel by or about a person of color.
And again, I wouldn't mind suggestions on this because I have no idea about romance novels. But I had tentatively written down one called Brew Girl by Eliza Davis that I found that is by and about a woman of color. I don't know, I was a little iffy on the plot of it because it's like this woman, she works for a brewery, which is what drew me in.
They said beer and I was beer.
There was a beer on the cover, so I was like, ooh.
Hello.
But it's a woman who, like, she's, you know, a strong, independent woman. She works for a brewery. And then she meets this guy who's, like, a dude bro douchebag or something. And somehow they fall in love. And so it was kind of like, ew, what? But then the last part said that, like, then she learns a secret that tears them apart or something. And she has to find herself again. So I'm like, okay, I could maybe get behind that. And she, like, had a you know, lapse in judgment.
Right.
And was with this man for a while and then was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I might read that, but if you guys have any suggestions for really good romance novels by or about people of color that you suggestions that you could suggest was what I was
right.
going to say.
Suggestions that you could suggest.
That you would recommend.
Recommendations you could recommend.
Yeah. Whew. We had some margaritas earlier.
That is an accurate thing that she said. What was the author that Jamie had mentioned earlier?
Oh, I can't remember at all.
Nor can I. I'll ask her about it again.
Next is to read a children's classic published before 1980.
I did not have a tentative pick for this yet.
I actually probably have a few that I could read for this because I have all those Puffin children's classics that I collected because they're beautiful. But the one I'm going to try to read is The Adventures of Robin Hood by Roger Lancelyn Green, because I've actually never read that, so.
Next is a celebrity memoir.
And I'm going to try to read Not My Father's Son by Alan Cumming.
And I am going to try to read Dispatches from the Edge by Anderson Cooper. I totes have a crush on Anderson Cooper.
Next is to read an Oprah's Book Club selection.
And I actually already completed this challenge. I read White Oleander by Janet Fitch.
I love that book so much.
It was really good. But god damn it fucked me up.
It's a kind of fucked up book, but I love that book. I read it several years ago, and it's one of my favorite books ever. Because it just, like, I read it, I don't even know how many years ago. It's been a while, and it's stuck with me so hard.
It has. Like, it's beautiful.
Sad elephant is sad.
Sad elephant is sad. But the writing in it is complete. It's beautiful, and it's really poignant, and it's sad, and it says a lot about, like, femininity and, like, independent. Like, it was deep and it fucked me up. It was a lot of.
It's a really good book.
There was some shit in there and it fucked me up.
And I think have a few things on my shelf that would count for this. I wrote down A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines, but I also have I Know the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison was an Oprah's Book Club selection. So maybe that, I don't know. I have a few I think that would count.
We'll get there.
Because Oprah knows what she's doing with picking books, okay?
Listen.
Megan has like a prejudice against Oprah's Book Club books. But
Oprah endorses Dr. Phil, so like, why would I trust her?
I get it. She endorses Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz,
why would I trust her?
But I don't think I've ever read an Oprah's Book Club book that I didn't like.
So maybe she
They're
has
all good.
tasting books and bad tasting people.
Could be.
I don't know.
Although she did rip that A Million Little Pieces guy a new one. Remember that guy? Was that was that the book, A Million Little Pieces?
I think so, yeah.
I haven't read that one. But she probably, like, that destroyed his life.
Can you imagine, like, how it would feel to, like, be ripped apart by Oprah?
Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
Next is a book of social science.
And again, I think I have a few things on my shelf that would count for this. I wrote down White Trash by Nancy Eisenberg. But I had, what else did I thought about reading Quiet by Susan somebody.
I used to own that book.
It's about introverts.
I tried to read it and I didn't like it.
Really?
Yeah. Which is surprising because
I've heard it's really good.
Quite a strong introvert. My pick for that is Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari, which I think I tried. I was gonna read a while back and I never did.
Well, we were gonna read it for Booktubeathon, I think, or some readathon, because I read it and you didn't get to that one.
I didn't get to it.
Yeah. Next is to read a one-sitting book.
I'm just gonna kind of let this one. I'm gonna see what happens.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna do too. I did write down what I think is probably the shortest book on my shelf, which is I Await the Devil's Coming by Mary McLean. So I could probably read that in one sitting, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. So next is the first book in a new to you YA or middle grade series.
And I was either going to read Skullduggery Pleasant by Eric Landy or the first book, the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the first book in that series, because I own both of those.
Both of those. I actually did read Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the first one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was creepy and fun, and those words don't usually go together except for
they do all the time with us
when we speak, but
we're like, this fucked up horror novel was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun for us. I actually watched the movie on the way back from Florida.
Really?
Yeah, Jamie and I watched it in the back of the SUV or whatever. We were driving back from Florida, and I really liked it. And so I wanted to read the book, and then I owned it because Sean got it for us. And yeah, it was really good.
Next is to read a sci-fi novel with a female protagonist by a female author.
And I am going to read The TERRANS by Jean Johnson, which I got at a library sale, and it's about, I don't really remember what it's about. The protagonist is female, and she's a soldier, but she's also psychic. She's like a political figure, like a political, I don't know, she works in the political arena.
Okay.
Because I don't think she's like a pundit, but she is also like a psychic soldier. I don't know.
Sounds
cool to me.
And I already read A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. Hey!
Hey!
And it was good. I really enjoyed it.
Next is a comic that is not published by Marvel, DC, or Image.
Again, for me, suggestions are welcome. I have no idea.
I'm gonna read Vault, which is like part of the John Carpenter's Tales of Science Fiction. It's like 3 or 6 issues. It's a series called Vault. And it's not published by, I can't remember who it's published by, but it's not Marvel, DC, or Image.
That's like my only kind of complaint with this challenge is that there's 3 comic book challenges. That seems a little excessive on the comic book challenges, but that's fine. They're not hard to fulfill. So
no, they're pretty quick and easy.
Next is to read a book of genre fiction in translation.
And I'm going to read...
I don't know why I said it like that.
Translation. I have to look up who this is by. So I'm going to read The Symmetry Teacher by Andrei Bitov. And that is translated from Russian. And it is supposedly metaphysical mystery.
Ooh.
I don't know what that means, but I'm excited to find out.
And I was planning to read The 3-Body Problem by, I'm going to try my best to pronounce this name correctly with my limited knowledge of how to pronounce Chinese names.
You can do it.
I can't even do, I'm like, see,
how many times have...
Hold on.
Okay, you got it.
Jin. I can't do it. Jin Liu. Something close to that. Probably not even close to that. But it's translated by Kin Liu. I have that on my shelf, and it's a sci-fi novel, and it's translated from Chinese. tentatively wrote down Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell because the edition I have is the movie edition, so it's just got like Tom Hanks and some other people's faces on it. Who likes movie editions of books? Nobody.
No one.
So maybe that one. I also thought about Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. I don't hate the cover, but it's just like, just says like Doomsday Book, and that's it. So I'm like, who cares?
You say Connie Willis?
Mm-hmm.
Did she write those Blackout books, Allie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I don't have a pick for this because I was looking at my shelves and I was really trying to find like a cover I didn't like, and I couldn't.
To the library and be like, give me the ugliest cover you have.
I need the ugliest book you have.
Next is to read a mystery by a person of color or LGBTQ+ author.
And I actually don't have anything picked out for this, so if you, because I don't usually read mystery, so if you have any suggestions.
Yeah, and I was a little bit at a loss as well because I'm also not, I don't know mystery stuff well. But I do have the book Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, but I'm not 100% sure if that counts as a mystery. So if you've read that book and could tell me if you think it would count as a mystery, I would much appreciate it.
Next is an essay anthology.
And I plan to read We Are All Stardust, and that is edited, well maybe edited's not the right word, it's like conversations with Stefan Klein with, he talks to a bunch of scientists in different fields. They talk about their work and their hopes for the future and things like that.
Stefan makes me think of like, it's a TP for your secrets, Stefan.
Oh, I always think of, remember on Family Matters when Urkel's, his like sexy alter ego, wasn't his name Stefan?
Yeah. So I'm planning to read Selfish, Shallow, and Self-Absorbed, which is a collection of essays from people who have chosen not to have children.
And next is to read a book with a female protagonist over the age of 60.
And I'm going to go with Fledgling by Octavia Butler because there's a little vampire person in there who is much older than 60.
Yeah. And I had tentatively written down Memento Mori by Muriel Spark. I know that all of the characters in that, or at least most of them, are elderly. And I'm pretty sure at least one of them is a woman, but I'm not sure, like, I'll have to maybe research that some more or something. Or I might just read Fledgling as well, because more Octavia Butler is always...
You can never go wrong with Octavia Butler. And lastly, an assigned book you hated or never finished.
And I only really have two options for this, I think, because I was quite the goody two-shoes. And I pretty much finished most books that were assigned to me in school, and I ended up liking most of them. But one book that I both hated and didn't finish was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Pirsig. So I might, and I still own it, I still have it from when I was in high school. So I might do that. The only other one I have that would count for this, I think, is King Leopold's Ghost. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but that was one that I was supposed to read in college, and I just, like, it was one of those things where I just, like, didn't have time to do it, so I didn't finish it.
And I'm going to reread The Grapes of Wrath because I read it in high school and I fucking hated it a lot. I liked that book. I hated it so much, and so I'm hoping that now Megan likes, or at least tolerates it, because then Megan was like, fuck this book, this is terrible, and I don't like it.
It's very bleak. That's for goddamn sure.
Are you seeing that?
I'm trying not to. We're getting a strip show behind us. Behind the camera.
That's something that happens to me a lot.
Oh god, here goes the pants.
Nope. My husband is stripping behind the camera.
I've somehow managed, well, I guess that's not exactly true, because I have seen you in your Frankenfurter costume.
So that is our Read Harder Challenge tentative TBR. God damn, I have hiccups.
Let us know if you're going to participate.
And let us know maybe some ideas for the
if you have
challenges
any
that we're
suggestions for those ones that we
are stuck on.
We're a little clueless on, then please, we'd appreciate.
Help a girl out.
Yeah. And I mean, the white stout's pretty good, but it's just weird to see a beer looking like this.
And tasting like it does.
It's odd, and it does taste more like white chocolate than like real chocolate.
It does. Yeah.
But it's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. So, there will be some links below where you can find us elsewhere on the internet.
And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.